For 9 months, starting in January this year, I sat down on the first of every single month to re-watch the entire Saw franchise, including Jigsaw and Spiral. Now, I have no shame in saying that Saw 10 is possibly one of my most anticipated releases of 2023. The Saw franchise is my favourite horror franchise. It has always been my favourite horror franchise, and it means a lot to me for personal reasons that I'm not going to go into in here. However, I really disliked Jigsaw and Spiral. So going into Saw 10, I'm kind of nervous about this because the last thing that I want this entry to be is another entry in the franchise that doesn't feel like it should belong within the Saw universe. I have heard positive whisperings on Instagram and I have avoided spoilers like the actual plague for this movie, but it has just become available on streaming services as of yesterday when I'm filming this, so it's about time that I finally watched Saw 10. Set between the events of Saw 1 and 2, John travels to Mexico for a risky and experimental medical procedure in the hopes of a miracle cure for his cancer, only to discover the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. Returning to his work, John turns the tables on the con artist through a series of terrifying traps. As always here on my channel, this video and review will be spoiler free, so I'm going to go and watch the movie off camera. That way, if you too want to watch Saw X/Saw 10 from 2023, nothing will be spoiled for you. Nobody wants to watch a movie that they have just watched somebody else watch from start to finish.
Pull the lever, Crunk.
I understand having to suspend a little bit of your disbelief when watching the Saw movies, but I do have to question how John got some of this stuff to Mexico. Like, how did Billy get through customs? Like, at this point, John is already the Jigsaw killer, so imagine being the guy working the security at the airport that day, and a Billy puppet and a bunch of cassette tapes and players just come through in somebody's suitcase with that not raised questions. Or was John just like, I'm gonna phone Amanda, and he's like, bring Billy, like shit's about to go down. I want to start by saying that making John the primary focus of this movie is a very, very smart decision, because this adds a lot more context to his backstory and how things escalated between the original Saw and Saw 2. And it might sound like a strange statement, but this adds more to John's human side rather than to his monster side, and you do empathise more with him in this movie than you have done in any of the previous movies. In particular, you see a lot more of John's paternal side come through in this movie, and it's not just with the character of Amanda Young. Now, I know that there are people out there that don't empathise with the character of John Kramer, but I am somebody that understands the situation that John is in and can empathise with the situation that John finds himself in, and I also understand why he makes some of the decisions that he makes throughout the series. Now, this movie adds furthermore to why John makes some of these decisions. I can't go into full details without going into spoiler territory, but I really like the decisions that they made with Amanda's character in this movie. She isn't as hardened as she comes across in Saw 2 yet, and this comes across with her interactions with John, but also through interactions that she has with another character in this movie that happens to be in one of the traps. It shows that she's still got this human side and hasn't become completely hardened to John's like philosophy and this way of people must be tested and prove that they want to live philosophy. Due to the things though that happen in Saw X/Saw 10, whatever you want to call it, you can 100% see how Amanda becomes this much hardened version of herself in Saw 2, and how eventually she ends up being the person she is in Saw 3. There is a lot of character building in the first maybe 35 minutes of the movie, so if you are expecting that the traps are going to dominate the movies like they do in some of them, then bear with it, because all of this plot at the beginning of the movie is essential for you to understand why John reaches the breaking point. There is an escalation in the brutality and the gore of the traps between Saw 1 and Saw 2, and Saw X/Saw 10 absolutely sees the spike in that. Now, what makes it slightly different is you actually see the moments leading up to when people are kidnapped/abducted and end up in these traps. You don't just see people waking up in these situations with no idea of how they got there. As a viewer, you get to understand the reason why these people have been selected. In prior Saw movies, you're told why somebody is there via the cassette tapes, but in this movie, you are shown it and given justification as to why they're there. I do like that you get a little snippet of where John gets the inspiration for the hand part of the eye vacuum trap. Now, in terms of traps in the entire franchise, this is possibly one of the most winnable traps in the entire franchise, because you are relying on only yourself to do this, you can verbally communicate, and you're not going head to head with somebody. And the whole point of this trap is, if you did this as fast as you could possibly do it, you could win this in seconds. However, the rest of the traps in Saw X are brutal, and most of them, the chances of you winning are incredibly, incredibly slim. And I kind of love that, because the reason for these people being selected is above and beyond a lot of the reasons why other people have ended up in Saw traps. If you've ever heard the expression, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, these people played a really stupid game and this is the prize that they've ended up with. The traps are a lot more stripped back, like they are in the original 3 movies, with one trap at the end being like the grand finale trap, if you wish. Now, the difference is they are a lot more gory in how they work and come across more like Saw 5 and Saw 6, you know, where there was just buckets and buckets of blood. And that's kind of the happy medium that I kind of want with my Saw traps. I want them to be brutal, I want them to be gory, I want there to be some kind of chance at winnability if I think you deserve it. That's what I want. I won't discuss the grand finale trap because, oh boy, is that good. But my favourite of the smaller traps is Mateo's trap, and oh boy, are you fucked if you're in that trap. Like, you mess up and your face becomes a human panini. I'm going to briefly mention the character of Cecilia, who is the doctor / brains behind this fake organisation. Now, she is one of, if not the most vile people in this entire franchise, which is saying something because Hoffman exists. To put into context how awful this woman is, at one point Amanda says that the doctor doesn't deserve anything, and I could not agree more with Amanda. As this movie goes on, she becomes more and more and more unlikable, and that is saying something because she's not likable to begin with. And John even says like, oh, but we have to give her a second chance because people deserve a second chance. No, she doesn't. Some people do not deserve a second chance, and I stand by that. Like, some people do not get a second chance. If you do what she does in this movie, you don't get a second chance. I'm with Amanda. It feels good to finally say that we have a new entry in the Saw franchise that actually feels like it belongs in the Saw franchise. Now, Spiral, Jigsaw, Saw 7, 3D, the final chapter, whatever you want to call it. To me personally, they don't feel like they belong in the Saw universe. The essence of what makes a Saw film isn't in those 3. Saw X, Saw 10, whatever you want to call it, it's the 10th entry. It feels like a Saw movie. It looks like a Saw movie. It sounds like a Saw movie. It's finally found its way back to being the franchise that I fell in love with so many years ago. And that just feels so good to say. It just fits so well where they have put it in the Saw timeline. Like, they've done a good job here, and I am optimistic with where the Saw franchise can go from here. It feels like we're finally back to that peak Saw era of Saw 1 to Saw 6. We're not going to include the final 3. I'm going to give Saw X / Saw 10 a 4 out of 5 stars because it takes the best parts from Saw 1 through 3 and it adds this like new twist on it. And Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith are back, and it's all that I wanted. And the plot twist, because it wouldn't be a Saw movie without a plot twist. And I honestly think that this might be one of the best plot twists in the Saw series. It's definitely tied in 3rd place to me. Like, Saw 3 will forever be my favourite, then Saw 2, and this is tied with the original Saw movie in 4th place. Like, that's how good it was for me. Also, please, if you take absolutely anything from my review, watch the post-credits scene. There is a scene halfway through the credits. Don't skip it, just watch it, please. It's my only request. Just watch it. So there you have it, my review and my initial thoughts on Saw X/Saw 10 from 2023. This was, like I said at the beginning of the video, one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I am so happy to say that it hasn't disappointed me. Now, I will be back on Friday with another movie review, and as always, if you want to know everything that I'm watching, you can find me over on Instagram, because I watch way more movies than I actually talk about here on my YouTube. So until Friday, bye!